So I'm Wayne Allen, CEO of Innovator's Edge and Insurance Thought Leadership. I'm here with the founder of Insurance Thought Leadership and Innovator's Edge, Dave Diaz.
Hey man, it is so great to be here with my pal.
Oh, this is great. So what we want to do here is just kind of spend a few minutes and kind of talk about Insurance Thought Leadership, where it came from, Innovator's Edge, how it kind of came into being, and what we're trying to do to shape the future of insurance.
Yeah, so awesome, Wayne, thanks. And what's so cool about this is like a face-to-face on a Saturday morning, because you and I usually talk on the phone for 2 hours on a Saturday morning.
But this won't be 2 hours long.
Exactly, that's right. Okay, yeah, right. You're a little safe for fewer calls. But yeah, look, Insurance Thought Leadership, that's the foundation. Thought leadership, as you have said many, many times, if you want to change behavior, you want to change the way people think. So thought leadership is a big deal. People always want to know what's going on, where's the future, how do I position myself, how do I learn, what do I need to know, who do I need to know in order to position for all that. And that's the foundation for which we've kind of built Innovator's Edge on top. When you have 1 million users, which we do with Insurance Thought Leadership, in 200 countries around the world, and we are broadcasting and publishing and getting information out as fast as we can to help empower a market, it creates additional ways that we can serve that market. So with Innovator's Edge, under your leadership, we've been able to craft this really amazing platform that we kind of metaphorically call eHarmony for insurance. We might be getting in trouble for using that term, but maybe we'll call it matchmaking.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Matchmaking the insurtechs and the members, right?
Right. So the thought leadership piece, some people have said, gee, you know what, the thought leadership that we were writing about and publishing 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago is evidenced in this hall here to our right with all these insurtechs, because they're now doing the kind of things that we talked about some years ago.
So we had the privilege, as you know, of beginning to partner with early stage innovators before the insurtech term even became in vogue.
Right.
We have an amazing advisory board, and when we were approached by some of our advisory board members, and they said, hey, look, we want to serve the C-suite at the highest levels of the insurance industry, and how can we serve them with some of the emerging technologies? That's why we did the Shaping the Future events at Google.
Right.
That's why we've been bringing people in for 2 to 3 days at a time, a couple of times a year, to talk about emerging tech, strategic innovation, mobility, autonomous vehicles, drones, and we have been doing it for quite a while, and we've been talking about what the future is going to look like, and we don't use the word disruptive on purpose, we use the word transformed,
right,
because this industry is going to get bigger, better, faster, more efficient, smarter, and we're going to be able to solve some of the biggest problems facing the world.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's important about what we do is kind of a constant reminder is a respect for the impact of the industry. That the insurance industry impacts every element, every piece of society, personal, business, and commerce could not happen but for the insurance industry. It just wouldn't be an economy. And based on that respect for the industry and what it does and the good it does, that we built thought leadership, right? The idea of kind of the Wayne Gretzky thing, you shoot the puck where the guy's going to be, you get out in front of it a little bit. And that was kind of the essence, if you will, of insurance thought leadership in the beginning, right?
Well, the essence is, you're exactly right. If the insurance industry is viewed as a horizontal line, every other industry on the planet is a vertical. So the insurance industry transcends every single industry.
Right.
And as you just said, there wouldn't be an economy without the insurance industry. It sustains it, it's the foundation, it's the bedrock, it's embedded into our culture, it's embedded into the fabric of how we think. It's death, taxes, and insurance. You can't avoid it. But it's expensive, it's complex, it's litigated, it's misunderstood. In some camps, it's disdained for the most part. So there's an opportunity here to really reframe the conversation, to have people understand how valuable the insurance industry is to them, even though they may take it for granted, even though they may not like it, even though it's maybe misunderstood, or maybe a claim wasn't adjudicated exactly the way they thought it should be, but there are reasons for that. It's a highly litigated, a highly regulated industry. Right. It's very complex, so therefore you have to have thought leadership out in front of it, and then you have to also understand how does this amazing incumbency of insurance carriers and reinsurers and brokers and consultants and TPAs and advisories and consultants and so on, how do they best understand what is emerging into the market? How do you track all that in 175 countries around the world? It's almost impossible if you do it manually.
It is, and I was talking with somebody earlier about this notion of technology and innovation left to its own devices being relatively agnostic. Not good, not bad, up, down, left, right, it just is. But it depends on how it's used. And what we are all about is this notion of what should be, right? Purposeful leadership, kind of directing this thing in a way that it's optimal for the industry, optimal for the consumer, optimal for business. And I think that's one of the things that's exciting about how we approach what we do and why we built Innovator's Edge.
Well, what's going to happen someday when lifespans are 125 years old instead of what they are today?
Right.
What does that fundamentally do to the actuarial tables, right? But how can we help increase lifespans, and how can we solve some of the biggest problems that are plaguing the planet? Illiteracy, poverty, clean water, clean air, education, leadership. How do we get the insurance industry in a position where it can actually lead and solve and mitigate some of those biggest challenges that are facing the planet?
You were talking about, the insurance industry affects every vertical of business, right? And in that context, who better to take that leadership position than insurance, right?
Absolutely.
And the thing that might be kind of misleading about that is, along that way, the industry gets to grow. There's more business, there's more premium, there's more benefit, there's more of everything in that whole process by raising all boats.
That's correct. They have a vested interest. If people are impoverished or they're illiterate and they can't read, they can't get a job. They can't own or buy assets. But
they sure can't write premium checks, can they?
That's right. They can't write premium checks for something that they don't have.
Right.
But if they can suddenly buy cars and buy property and buy things that have an insurable interest, so the insurance industry has not only an obligation and an opportunity, but there is a stewardship responsibility here, and they do have a vested interest in helping people improve their lifestyles.
Yeah, particularly you talk about UBI and experiential coverage and stuff like that, how directly impactful that could be to somebody's life.
Well, and you look at even beyond the property casualty, beyond the life and health, you start looking at IoT, you start looking at IoE, you look at IoD, M-Tech, health tech, biotech, medtech, all of those are going to fundamentally change the way insurance is underwritten, but it's also going to, a lot of those technologies are going to fundamentally change the nature of risk itself.
Right.
So the product liability exposure, the D&O exposure is going to be big, right? For these board members, they're going to have to be more aware, right? So the insurance industry has a massive opportunity to educate and bring along the consuming public, both personal and commercial, of what that looks like and help shape the future.
So here comes along Innovator's Edge, born out of the reality that the relationships we were able to develop through thought leadership resulted in people asking us to connect them, right? And so pretty quickly in that process, about 3 years ago, we go, wow, there's got to be a better way of doing this. And so Innovator's Edge was our vision, right, of how we could be better at creating a survey of the landscape of the innovation part of the industry, how we could connect people more efficiently and more effectively. Gosh, I could talk about Innovator's Edge forever, but give me your thoughts on why we did it and where we're going.
We're a pure play within the insurance industry. We are focused 100% on the insurance industry, so we're not distracted by other industries at all.
Right.
I think that in and of itself helps you get really focused and helps you get you can get more successful quicker, right? So then if you build these algorithms, which led by our amazing CTO, right? A NASA-trained rocket scientist, kind of cool to have on the team. So he can build these very powerful algorithms with all these search methodologies to help connect the insurtechs to the industry and help the industry find those insurtechs that are most strategic to helping them with their vision. So it's an efficiency tool. You can't do this manually. You have to have software. You have to have a mechanism. You have to be able to have a coherent way of rationalizing all this stuff that's coming at you so quickly. It's overwhelming for any individual or even a team of people to rationalize this in a coherent way, unless there's a structure and a methodology to doing that, which is what we're trying to do with Innovator's Edge. You bet.
And then you apply all the technology on top of that, the analytic tools, right, that give people insight into depth, the ability to bring all information available, all available information about a particular insurtech or particular category or particular domain so that the knowledge, the learning, the understanding of the industry or that particular aspect of it is as complete as you can get it.
So we talked to a CEO, as you know, recently, that said they were absolutely exhausted because they traveled for 3.5 weeks and they've been to London, they've been to New York, and they've been to Silicon Valley, and they were now back in Bermuda, and they said they were absolutely exhausted. We showed them a demo of Innovator's Edge, and in 10 minutes we were interrupted and they said, stop. You've just shown me more in 10 minutes than I learned in the last 3 weeks. So how do you track all this stuff? I mean, how do you follow all the accelerators and all the cohorts within those accelerators? And there's a bunch of really good work going on in those accelerators, but how do you get a framework and an understanding of who's done what, where are they, and then where are they in their progress? So how do you vet opportunities? How do you test the viability of due diligence, threshold due diligence, to figure out if that's an insurtech you really want to talk to? So what we're creating is amazing to me. It's what is your underlying technology? What is your operational capacity? Where are you in your regulatory compliance? Where are you in your ability to scale? And then where are you in your funding? So you begin to get a framework and a view of how that company might relate to what you're trying to accomplish.
In a very holistic way, right? Because one of the things we did that I'm super proud of early on, before anybody else ever really thought about them as being a significant key player, is the involvement of the regulatory community in this thing.
Huge.
Right, and so we're super fortunate to have just great relationships with the people involved, right? With great institutions like the institutes, with great institutions like AM Best that play amazing roles, and it's those types of relationships that allow us to be a reliable source of those types of information.
Well, that's why we've invited NEIC into these venues, right? Where these very private executive forums we were hosting, where people could really, they could take the charade, they could take the mask off,
right,
and they could relationally get real with each other,
right,
and talk about where they're at. And so that has opened up huge opportunities, because there's always misunderstandings and relationships when you're in different sectors, right? Well, do I really trust the regulators? Well, do I really trust those technology companies? Well, if you actually sat at the table and talked, got to know each other, you might figure out you have a lot more in common than you do not.
Yeah,
so we've had the privilege of bringing those sorts of conversations to bear.
One of the common themes in a lot of the interviews we've done here at InsurTech Connect 2017 is around culture, right? If there's any great inhibitor to innovation in any organization, it's usually culture. We here at ITL and Innovators Edge enjoy what I think is a great culture. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
So, look, it's all about the team, it's about the chemistry. When you're operating in a virtual environment, which we are, how do you create an environment that you almost feel like you're operating under the same ceiling? I think one of the things that we've been able to humbly accomplish with the team is having a daily phone call at 6:30 in the morning every single day. We're on the phone for 45 minutes with each other, and it's a round table, kind of a stand-up call. You lead those meetings, you shepherd those meetings, and everybody reports on where they're at, what they're doing, and where they're going. Right. And it allows everybody to stay in sync with one another, and you don't need 9 pitchers on a baseball team. You need to have 9 different players, and they need to be an A-team player at every level. And we've been able to assemble A players for each position that they play, and everybody contributes differently, but they're all on their A game, and they're giving 100% every day.
Absolutely. So if we take a moment to give a shout out to our team members. I mean, Paul Winston and Paul Carroll and Guy Fraker and Joe Estes.
Huge.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, and our advisory board.
And our advisory board.
I mean, too many to name. But our advisory board, we're like humbled because they are just some of the most ridiculously smart, creative, and committed people I've ever met.
Yeah, and you know, we have this great thing the first Friday of every month called the AB 45, which is a 45-minute advisory board call, and we've gotten such great direction, such great feedback that we just would never be able to say thank you, I think, enough for those guys and gals.
And back to the team for just a second, I'll just tell you, every team member that's there is teachable. They're lifelong learners. There's low ego. There's high capacity. And when you could put that as a combination where there doesn't need to be, the one person whose voice trumps everything, everybody's voice matters, and you get a much better result.
Right.
And you've been leading that effort, and it's just been so exciting to see kind of how we interact, and we actually like each other, we like hanging out with each other, we're doing life with each other, and the good, the bad, the different. I mean, Joe Estes, here one of his best friends, his groomsman at his wedding, firefighter here in Vegas, was shot at that outrageous event that occurred a few days ago. And here's Joe, able to go over there and hang out with him, and so we got good people that are really trying to do good things.
Right. So, big future for Innovator's Edge. We are nowhere near done yat.
Lots of work.
Sorry, Joe, we got a big roadmap out there.
Right.
So this has been great. I'm glad we had a chance to chat and kind of give everybody a little bit of a insight look into Innovator's Edge.
And Wayne, I just want to say thanks to you and your leadership. We wouldn't be where we are without you.
Oh.
I want to thank you. I mean that. We have such a blast, and I love my Saturday morning calls with you, man. It's the highlight. Nobody
Same
knows
here.
that you and I are on the phone an hour to 2 hours every single Saturday morning, and we have been for 2 years.
Exactly.
This is not like the last couple of months.
That's right.
It's like 2 years. So thanks for your leadership.
Oh, thank you.